What is up, team? Welcome back to the Red Storm Rapid Reaction Podcast. I'm Pat Kane. That's Cole Ladshaw. St. John's just fell 96-94 in a thrilling overtime defeat to Michigan. Man, what a game! Free basketball at the end, and already at can you call it an exhibition game? Can you use that term, free basketball, when it's already an exhibition game? But St. John's looked much better than they did against Towson, playing against a much better opponent in Michigan, ranked seventh before the season starts here. Cole, your thoughts just a short time after that tough defeat?
That's October basketball, baby. Oh, can you feel it pumping through my veins? Oh, God, that was so much fun. I mean, obviously, would we rather have seen Lefteris Leotopoulos make all three of those free throws there at the end of the game and us walk away with a win? Of course. But I think Rick Pitino is able to take a bunch away from this game. He's able to coach up his team, teach them about what we're doing incorrectly. I think it's a great learning experience. Awesome atmosphere there. Kudos to every single human being that was filling up Madison Square Garden, despite it being an exhibition game. Just really cool to see. Could you ever imagine, Pat, whatever we had there, 13,000 people in Madison Square Garden for a preseason game for St. John's University, ranked 5 in the nation?
No.
I God bless, again, we've said it a million times. God bless Rick Pitino. God bless Mike Rapoli. God bless Father Shanley. Like just really cool stuff, man.
Yeah, the Holy Trinity. Yeah, it's really a pinch me moment for the program in terms of where they've come in such a short time with Pitino at the helm. Of course, it would have felt a lot better if Lefty did finish it off. But, more so than myself being left feeling about a devastating loss or losing sleep tonight, I feel bad for Lefty for, having that moment slip through his hands where would have been something he could have held on to for a long time. Even though it's just an exhibition, like we're saying, that would have been a heck of a moment. Well, I think he had 11 points there in overtime, and
I was going to say not to take away what missing those free throws. Obviously, that's hard. And Sadiko Ibn Ayo, kudos to him being the consummate professional and going up to the kid immediately after missing those free throws and trying to bring him up. But what an incredible performance by Lefty in overtime. Literally left for dead, down 8, and he single-handedly brings us back 8-0 run by himself. Just amazing performance by him in overtime. Like you can't let his game performance end on missing 2 of 3 free throws from the line with a chance to go ahead. Like,
do you remember the first shot he took in overtime?
Just drained a 3, wasn't it?
No, you don't remember the first one that he got his shot blocked for 3 and ended up in a dunk the other way, and we're like, oh man, there. Yeah. Lefty came in, Rick drew up a play from him, he hesitated, didn't take the first shot, pump faked, got blocked. It's like, oh, there we go again. And then right from there, 2 quick threes, went to the line after a huge tough board. I mean, those 2 threes were money, and he showed some serious confidence in himself hitting them after having the first one blocked. But then that toughness he had on the glass to get a rebound in traffic, go down and hit the 2 free throws really was a good showing for Lefty after I thought he had good minutes earlier in the game too. Maybe not leading with a bunch of scoring opportunities, but did have 4 points prior to overtime. And that, speaking of that tough rebounding, we were just talking, and Rick, I saw a quote after the game, was lamenting his team for not having enough rebounding from his guards. And you look at Lefty, you look at Darling, and then you look at the other guys, and obviously you're going to say Sellers, Sannon, Jackson are more equipped physically to be on the glass and be assets there. And it's been the opposite, at least so far within a small sample size. But, your thoughts on Lefty rebounding and, I don't know, the guards as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I think our bigger problem is our guards getting in foul trouble. I thought Jason Sannon looked absolutely tremendous early in the first half. I think that's the type of Sannon we need this season. We need him to be a bucket. We need him to be willing to take over games offensively, and that's the player that he looked like offensively. Unfortunately, got in foul trouble. Similarly with Isaiah Sellers, only playing 8 minutes today. By all intents and purposes, he is Rick Pitino's starting point guard at this current stage of this team. He has struggled mightily between the game against Towson and then the game today. Now, how much of that is him quote unquote playing out of position, being forced into more of a ball dominant role, when really we would ideally have him playing off ball as a catch and shoot 3-point specialist. Is that why he's struggling as much as he is and he's being forced into point guard role? I can't speak to that. But we hope to see. I don't think Rick obviously said Ozai had a rough game against Townsend. I think he would obviously say the same thing about his game today against Michigan. I think we expect a lot more out of Ozai and we'll see a lot better. Ian Jackson also only 22 minutes. I'm still not throwing in the towel on the Ian Jackson at point guard experiment. I think he still, as Rick Pitino said, will be the next great point guard at St. John's University. I think this will take a little bit longer to get into that role.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, Rick Pitino. It's been a long time since he said that. 2 assists tonight, also 2 turnovers. I think it's still a work in progress. I think Ian will get there, but he still looks uncertain with his handle. I think we'll get there. I think all 3 guards struggled at times, including Josan with the fouls. But I think we see flashes. I think especially Josan, it was great to see him be so aggressive offensively early. I really like what we saw from him early in the game.
Yeah, I think he looks the most comfortable creating space and getting a shot off for himself from the perimeter threats. Hopkins maybe not included, who's got a better, he can get in within traffic and kind of get guys off their feet and finish in the post better than Sannon could. But in terms of a 3-point look, mid-range jump shot, or finishing with a layup at the rim, I think Sannon's shown the most ability there early. Like you said, he came out of the gates really hot, looked good, couple baskets early, did hit a 3 late too. That was much needed in overtime. We'll talk about the 3-point shooting, I'm sure, 2 games in, and what was thought to be a big area of improvement, and perhaps, what was thought to be a strength of this team. The way it was built this season would be weapons all over on the perimeter in terms of 3-point shooting. Sannon, Sellers, Jackson, primarily included. And so far, those 3 have yet to get going from 3. Sannon hit one today. Sellers and Jackson. Did Jackson hit one in the first game? I'm not sure.
He did against Townsend, yeah, but not obviously.
Yes,
not tonight,
he did. So I'm going to stick with my guns there. That's a concern that, out of a lot of things you could be worried about, that's not one that I'm yet to pull the alarm bells on. I think basketball is such a snapshot sport, and we happen to have 2 really poor shooting games. Do I think there's some issues that got to be straightened out offensively in terms of spacing and role allocation? Absolutely. But in terms of shots fallen, we're not going to be 4 for 21 many nights or 1 for 18 for long stretches, I don't believe.
Yeah, you got to think that 3-point shooting is going to improve. Obviously, we also mentioned Isaiah Sellers only playing 8 minutes tonight. Like, I think that's very big considering factor as to shooting so poorly from the 3-point line. I think one of the things that you love to see is the free throw shooting improving so much. Like that's fantastic and very abnormal for a St. John's basketball team to be so good from the free throw line. Love that. Obviously, this past week we saw Zuby Ejiofor named Big East preseason player of the year. Awesome. Congratulations to Zuby. Much well deserved. Yeah. Despite struggling against Townsend. Tremendous game tonight, and what a heavyweight matchup between him and Yaxel. Zuby with 24 points, 6 boards, 6 assists, leading the team. We'll get into the point guard play. Again, the big men leading the team in assists, 6 assists from Zuby, but just an absolutely heroic performance. And it's cool. Yes, I 100% agree with you. We don't expect the team to struggle as much from 3-point as they have over these last 2 games. But you just not only competed, took a team to overtime, had every chance to win a game against a top 8 team in the nation in Michigan with your guards performing as poorly as they did. Like, we have that much flexibility in our roster to be able to have different players step up while other players are underperforming. You get a tremendous performance from Zuby. Bryce Hopkins with his second game in a row, looking like he is 100% back from injury. 13 points, 9 boards, like just tremendous performance from him. It's so exciting. Dylan Mitchell looked tremendous tonight. I thought that Triple Towers, copyright Red Storm Rapid Reaction podcast. Nobody better reuse that.
I gotta stop you, Cole, because this doesn't sound like cold water Cole that a lot of our fans have grown accustomed to. This sounds like glass half full, optimistic, looking at the bright side of things. I'm not sure what's gotten into Cole. Hopefully our fans can adjust to this, because I'm right there with you. I'm not leaving this exhibition doom and gloom. I think there's plenty of positives to take from it. Obviously, Coach Pitino is always like an end game coach, right? He's thinking long term. He's thinking about being the best when it matters most. Will we have some hiccups? I'm sure. Will we look our best early? Probably not. But I think, like you just said, in a game where we struggled to score against a really good team, the Axel, who is so freaking good, and another what if in a series of what if St. John's has is their history about players that should have been on their campus, or I mean, was he ever on our campus? But that's for another night. And St. John's still found a way to be in a game and really had their chance, and perhaps you could say should have won. But there's definitely some issues. I think some players are probably wondering, is this exactly what my role is going to be right now? It's a jumble right there, and there's a lot of guys in that 1 and 2 spot, especially when you're not sure about a few guys if they're the 1 or the 2, and then you're so sure about Hopkins and Mitchell and Zuby, where it's a little bit of a tough squeeze for Rick to find those guys enough rhythm and enough playing time to get everybody comfortable. But hopefully those guys can keep their heads on and fight through and sacrifice as the season goes. We'll see.
And while we're giving players kudos and criticizing the guard play today, I do want to give a real slap on the back to Dylan Darling, who I thought looked tremendous out there. Probably one of my biggest questions coming into this year, obviously, was the point guard play. Is Ian Jackson going to be able to shoulder the load of playing all the point guard minutes? And if not, would Dylan Darling be able to step up a huge step forward in competition after coming from a much lower conference into playing Big East? You just stepped in against, again, a team ranked number 7 in the nation, and he looked like he belonged for those 31 minutes on the court. He did not lack defensively. He was an absolute dog out there, forcing turnovers. I thought he looked like a real good distributor of the ball, even created, I don't know what he had assists wise, looks like 2 assists.
He finished with 2.
Not sure how many turnovers.
How shot, right?
But also created, I mean, I think he created at least 2 wide open looks for EO out on the corner, on the perimeter that he missed. Like, there could have been other assists for shots that were missed. I was really happy with his play today. I thought he looked really good and comfortable out there against, obviously, tremendous competition. So that was my biggest concern going into the season. I think he answered every one of my doubts tonight. So I'm fully confident in him going forward.
Cole's feeling good tonight, folks, and Dylan Darling will appreciate that. I appreciate
might be the booze, but
I think you said it good right there when you said that he belongs, right? Like I don't think his stat line really stood out.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was interesting with go ahead, Pep.
No, I was saying around the basket, he was able to, still finish around some big bodies pretty well. And I think that 3-point shot, I think he was 1 for 4 tonight, but hit his first one. The other ones were not as wide open. I think he'll be a threat from deep as the season goes on.
At least forcing the defense to respect him for sure.
Yeah. We didn't really mention it, and I'm not sure if we'll get much time to talk about him in terms of the second half and overtime, but I think Ruben Prey in that first half really showed well. Zuby goes to the bench. We stick with the 3 big lineups, and against the formidable front line, so much size between Johnson and Yaxel and Mara, as big as a front line as we'll see all throughout college basketball, pretty much the entire country, maybe sans Florida, and Prey we didn't lose a beat defensively inside. He doesn't have the offensive skills as a lot of the premier bigs do in the conference, but in terms of defense, rebounding, athletically, I think he can hang with pretty much anybody, and it's great when you don't have a drop off and you got to go to the bench early. And he is getting more confident, maybe to Rick's. I'm not sure if Rick loved to see his confidence offensively in the game a few times in the first half. Maybe an unwarranted quick three comes to mind, but nonetheless, I think Prey's a fan favorite, and he's getting better.
And again, back to the spacing between whatever configuration of the triple tower that we have out there. I don't think there were any problems offensively with spacing, whether the three were Dylan, Bryce Hopkins and Ruben, or Dylan, Bryce Hopkins and Zuby. I thought the spacing still looked great offensively. I think both Bryce and then Dylan, with his ability to drive from the perimeter, like that helps space and not clog up the paint. I think that looked great. Kudos to Dylan Mitchell, who 3 for 4 free throw shooting, looked much more comfortable at the line than he had in previous years. I know a lot of people have speculated, hey, can you really have him out at the free throw line, in an end of game situation? I think that free throw shooting looked way more comfortable than it had been previously. So is that going to be something to where we can't have him off the court if he's able to hit free throws? It's just amazing what Dylan can do, affecting the game in multiple layers, whether it's on the defensive end, offensively, on the boards. I just love that kid and everything that he does on the court. I think Rick Pitino's already in love with him, and it's so fun to see what he brings in the game.
Yeah, he's a Swiss Army knife. He does a little bit of everything. My favorite type of player happens to be a lefty too, so just checks a lot of boxes in terms of what I'm looking for out there. And it'll be interesting. You said you thought the spacing looked good. I don't know if I'd agree completely. I think we got a lot of work to do there. I do think a lot is it a chicken or an egg situation when you're struggling from a three. Obviously, teams are going to be able to crowd you a little bit more, and it's not going to be as obvious when you can't make them pay for a mishap or a mistake, right? Like we saw today. Michigan made St. John's pay late in overtime a few times. Cadeau got the step on Darling, and we had to step in for help, and they found shooters who made shots. Darling on the other end made a couple plays, found shooters, and we didn't make shots on that end. So a lot of it is a game by game situation, but I do think Mitchell Hopkins are just going to be too good of a tandem to play mega minutes without three bigs on the court. And I know Cole loves hearing that, but we're going to have to learn how to space the floor, and those guards are going to have to figure out their roles.
I guess let's put it like this. Would spacing look a lot better if you weren't shooting 4 for 23 from 3-point? Yes, of course. Can you complain about offensive spacing, about having too many bigs on the floor at the same time when you score 94, 96 points? Like, I guess that can't really be a complaint offensively when you're putting up those type of points in the game.
I know a lot of the times I'm looking at the space, I'm thinking this isn't great, but then we're getting a shot at the rim, or we're getting an open three that we miss. And then I'm looking at good spacing, at least what you'd think would be good spacing, and leading to a poor shot or a turnover. So it's it's hit or miss. That's the game of basketball. That's why we love it. Let's talk about what I didn't love in the second half. I'm sure what Coach Pitino didn't love. I think we gave up close to a touchdown, maybe more of just fast break pass over the top layups when we were trying to set up a full court press. I can think of at least 3 layups that were wide open, just touchdown passes. Really inexcusable to happen multiple occasions like that, especially when a few of them happened following timeouts, not directly after it, but we had let it happen, and I'm sure discussed it, and then it happened again. And in an overtime game where every point matters, you look back at things like that as things you definitely got to shore up. Maybe it's got to do with lineup adjustments. I know Mitchell seems to be the guy who's always on the ball, makes sense on press, but then you got to make sure someone's all the way back. If Mitchell's 94 feet away from the basket. That might be our best rim protector. Then better hope Prey or Zuby or Hopkins, one of those three guys, depending on who's in, has got to make sure they've rotated all the way back and has that last line of defense shorn up. And it hurt us tonight. So your thoughts on the pressure defense or anything on the pressure related side of things?
I mean, I 100% agree with you. There was clearly some breakdowns to where we were giving up like the deep ball and then easy baskets at the other end for Michigan. But simultaneously, the counter to that is how many just, in essence, unforced, quote unquote, forced turnovers did we create for Michigan. I mean, they were just throwing the ball away. I mean, Elliot Cadeau may not be the most natural of point guards for a team. They might be in a similar boat to us of not really having like a real dominant point guard, but they were kicking the ball out of bounds a lot for a top-rated team in the nation. And I think some of that might have been from ball pressure that we were creating. So it's sort of a give and take. Yeah, are you going to get beat when the early in the season when your press isn't 100% ironed out and Rick Pitino hasn't been able to really get these guys dialed in yet? Yes, of course. But it was great to see them create so much ball pressure to be able to force so many turnovers.
Yeah, a lot of unforced turnovers. You don't know the effect that St. John's has over the whole game in terms of wearing teams down, what that can lead to. And some of those look like just mental breakdowns from Michigan, but perhaps St. John's had its hand in some of those. Unfortunately, a lot of those unforced turnovers don't lead to baskets on the other end. So while St. John's did force a bunch of turnovers, they weren't really creating points from those turnovers. And wasn't enough to overcome the big time shooting discrepancy between the two teams. Let's see some team comparison stuff. Yeah, so for the game, Michigan 52% from the field. Obviously, that's a little bit too high from St. John's perspective. From the free throw, 78%, 41 attempts. So St. John's was living at the line. Can't complain there. We did have a 12 free throw advantage, but we also got beat by 12 on the rebounding advantage. So that's 2 games in a row where St. John's has got beat on the boards, both on the offensive and the defensive glass. Not something I would have necessarily predicted as an overall theme, but again, Michigan is one of the biggest teams in the country. So, nothing to really be too upset about being lesser than perhaps maybe St. John's is trying to hang their hat on having one of the best front courts in the country as well, but I don't think we're as big as Michigan is size wise.
That's my point. When you got the triple towers out there, do you really want to be giving up 16 offensive rebounds? Obviously, we're going to get our offensive boards with Zuby out there constantly being aggressive and going after the offensive boards, but when we have 3 big guys out there, I'd prefer not to be giving up 16 rebounds ourselves.
That's a fair point. And you don't expect to be having that trade-off if you're using that lineup. You think you should be trading off, because you're doing that, you're not getting beat on the boards and you're gonna have to win in different ways. But if you're playing those 3 big guys and you're still getting beat on the boards, then that might be an issue. Some plus minuses, obviously the ones that stand out, Sellers minus 11 in just 8 minutes. Not his best showing. I'm not ready to, paint with a broad brush here. It's only 2 games and limited time. But we'll see. He did miss some good looks tonight from the perimeter, and it wasn't, just the lack of minutes or the lack of playing time that I don't think he looked particularly good out there tonight. Got beat to the hole, led to some fouls. Obviously, if you have 5 fouls in 8 minutes, that's an issue, whether a couple of them were ticky-tack or not. You have to learn your lesson. And we saw last year, Rick is a stickler for two fouls. You're out the rest of the first half, regardless of who you are. So those guys tonight might be their first time learning that lesson. They better learn that lesson quick.
Yeah, I don't think we would have seen Casper Proto getting any playing time if it wasn't for the foul trouble of the guards in the first half. I'd argue that's probably my biggest concern tonight was the foul trouble that the guards got into. Just saying, like we mentioned, looked so good offensively in the first half, but picking up as many fouls as he did, we're not necessarily that deep at the guard position to be able to be picking up fouls like that and have guys glued to the bench the way Rick does glue the guys to the bench when they get in foul trouble. I'd say that and the 3-point shooting tonight are my 2 biggest concerns.
Yeah, the fouls do help Rick figure out how to give minutes out. It's a lot easier to go to the bench early when your starters are forcing your hand with 2 quick fouls. Um, I think if we had a definitive point guard fleshed out other than Darling in terms of we felt better whether it's Shannon or I'm not saying whether it's Sellers or Jackson, and we could really piece together 40 minutes there. And if we feel pretty confident in that regard, I would think you would look at our depth at the guard spot as a positive because then you'd have Shannon and Jackson or Sellers, whichever one of those guys isn't in the point guard picture, as just being able to be themselves, the natural scorers off the basketball and can fill it up in that regard. And then you've got, again, Prey as an awesome fourth big, but 3 guys, Zuby, Mitchell, and Hopkins, who can play with anybody out there. So I don't think our talent's going to be an issue. I think it's going to be getting to know each other, Rick, as much as the players getting to know him. And I think we'll find a lot of success in the Big East. Obviously, I think Creighton will be a challenge as that third team other than UConn. But tonight we probably saw a team that we won't see other than UConn and Creighton better than in the Big East.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So Pat, let me ask you, we talked last time about concern regarding the point guard position. I think you labeled your worrisome level at a 4. I said maybe I was somewhere at a 5 or a 6. So now we're 2 exhibition games down. We're ready for Quinnipiac on 11-3. Let me gauge again your concern about the point guard position. Are you still at a 4? Where are we at on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being a nothing burger and 10 we're being in deep doo-doo?
I'm sticking right at a 4. I think I was happy with how Darling played today, but I wasn't as worried about him. He did do a good job, I think, maybe knocking away some concerns for others. With that, we whacked that mole, and then the other one popped up with perhaps Sellers or Jackson, whichever way you want to look at that. I am more focused on Darling being good enough for 20-ish minutes, and then I think the other 20 minutes you can live with a by committee or not a natural point guard look as long as you're solid for those 20 minutes. And I think Darling is, like I say, a 4 in terms of my worry. So I'm gonna stay there with 4. Where's the meter moving in your world?
And it's ironic that you say you're comfortable with Darling for 20-ish minutes when he plays 31 against the number 7 team in the nation.
In overtime.
But I'm pretty much in lockstep with you. I am sticking at that 5 to 6 range that I said last time. I think I was less concerned about Oziah Sellers and Ian Jackson than I was I should say I'm more concerned than I was after last game. But I am most importantly now way less concerned about Dylan Darling. I was admittedly really worried about him taking a huge step up in conference play from his previous conference to the Big East. I don't think he's probably ever stepped on the court with a team as good as Michigan. He looked like he belonged for every one of those 30 minutes today. And I am fully confident in his ability to distribute at a high level. I am fully confident in his ability defensively and his ability to at least force teams to respect him out on the perimeter. I was very happy with his play today, and that made me feel a lot better about the point guard position.
All right. I'm sure a lot of fans feel the same way. I think, not ironically, Sellers could use him the most of the other guards. So, with those guys almost being as substitutes for each other, maybe Sellers could benefit from getting some run alongside of him. And
I think that's the most important. I think obviously, you and I didn't see the red and white scrimmage. By all reports, Oziah Sellers was the best player on the court in that game and was absolutely unconscious from deep. Put up tremendous, I think 31 points or something insane like that. He's probably been my least impressive player through the 2 exhibition games between Townsend and today. I think his natural position is obviously off ball. He's being forced into an awkward spot here where we're still trying to get Ian Jackson more comfortable on ball, getting Dylan Darling more involved with more point guard, more lead guard minutes with the starting unit. I think as Uzziah can move to his more natural position of playing off-ball spot-up shooter, I think we're going to see him really thrive. So to your point, like if Dylan Darling can take over more of these point guard minutes, leading to Uzziah playing off-ball, you're not going to see Uzziah Selps playing 8 minutes and shooting 0 for 1 from three-point. You're going to see a lot more of him being a knockdown, dead-eye three-point shooter and getting on the court all day long. So,
And then you got Lefty. If they're not making those shots, as you know, again, I think people forgot about Lefty, and he wasn't here in the summer, and I think he's an easy guy to overlook. But if he's hitting shots, I think confidence is a huge thing in basketball. Obviously, in both these exhibitions, he's hit a few shots early, helped him settle in, helped him breathe a little bit, and I don't think he looked overmatched defensively. And you know, confidence is a huge thing. Hit some shots, your team starts finding you. Next thing you know, you're in your coach's good graces, and he's getting more and more minutes. But we already said is a log jam looking like it. If all these guys play well, which hopefully they do, you're looking at a champagne problem for Coach Pitino in terms of finding these guys minutes.
What a problem
champagne,
to have.
Is that what you're drinking over there tonight? Champagne?
Yeah, dude. Booze has been flowing all day long. It's an exciting day.
It's too bad you couldn't celebrate with a St. John's win over Michigan at Madison Square Garden for an exhibition game. But hey, like you said, November 3rd, Quinnipiac. You're not a Quinnipiac guy?
They're in big trouble, man. I'll tell you right now.
Quinnipiac. Right. I'm a Quinnipiac guy, not a Quinnipiac guy.
Quinnipiac.
Yeah, it's one of those ones with a couple different pronunciations.
All I know is they're in big trouble, and they're about to get smacked by about 30 points. So good luck to you.
We'll be here. We'll be ready for that one to give you a nice recap. Thanks, there for tuning in. Shout out to my guy, Shane LaChance, good buddy of mine who did our new Red Storm Rapid Reaction logo that you see on the show tonight. I know we did a little rebranding in the summer, doing a little rebranding now, trying to find the perfect one. I think this one looks great. So shout out to him. Shout out to you guys for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, give us a comment or a follow. For Omar Cook, I'm Pat Kane. This has been the Red Storm Rapid Reaction. That's Cole Adshaw. Peace.